I'm Brandi Kruse. Coming up today on Undivided. Apparently everywhere except Washington state is waking up to the insanity of progressive politics. Also, we'll go through the latest in local, state, and federal races. Plus, Seattle sends a socialist to Olympia to make laws for everyone. That and more coming up today on Undivided. Remember, you can support our show for just $5 a month. I'm only laughing because we're all so utterly depressed of politics. But hey, join us. You can join our show for $5 a month by signing up at undividedpod.com. Hello and welcome to Undivided. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much for your continued commitment to giving common sense a comeback. I'll say the results are good for this show. The local results are good for this show. They're good for our business. Democrats, building their majorities only to do crazier and crazier things. It's good for our business, but it's bad for the state. And that's why we knew that. We knew that when we were out there advocating for common sense candidates to try to give the state a little balance, that if we could help restore the state to some semblance of normalcy. I don't know that our business does as well, but I'd rather have the state doing well than our business doing as well. So look, the state results are a disaster. The Washington State Republican Party is dead. It's dead. I don't know how you come back from that. A lot of these races are 40-60. Some people will say that it has to do with Donald Trump being at the top of the ticket. Fine. Donald Trump has never done very well here, although as we'll discuss momentarily, he's actually outperforming himself in previous years. I don't know how in the foreseeable future the Washington State Republican Party can hope to win any statewide races. And what does that mean for the state as Democrats continue to consolidate their power? I really believe, and we're going to have some examples on the show today out of California, that this might be the last place in the nation that is not waking up to the destructive nature of progressive politics. It's clear as day. And I don't think voters are stupid. I don't mean to say like my opinions are the only opinions that matter, and if you don't agree with me, then you're just an idiot. I think there's a lot of lies happening, a lot of gaslighting. Bob Ferguson won the governor's office with lies. Like, congratulations, we now have a liar in the governor's office. I mean, every ad he put on TV was a lie. How anyone could be proud of that, I don't know. So I think there's a lot of low information voters. That doesn't mean stupid voters. It means that they're not soaking in politics and actively out seeking information about candidates and issues, et cetera. A lot of them are party line voters, or they see the ads on TV and they're like, yep, that'll do it for me. That's a tough thing to get past. It might take, movement toward having independent candidates in the state. And I hate to say it, Mark Mullet was right all along. I mean, I don't hate to say it. He was right all along that he was the only one who would be able to beat Bob Ferguson. He would have beat Bob Ferguson in the general election. And so maybe it's about Republicans stepping back and allowing now some of these more moderate Democrats to just win seats. So we'll get to that in a second. But I'll just start with the presidential race. Gosh, I'm glad I supported Trump at the last minute. Otherwise, I would have been on the losing side of virtually everything. And I don't think my cold heart could have taken it. We were utterly depressed until Donald Trump, they called Pennsylvania for Donald Trump. And then I was like, because I never voted for him before. And so I was like, what is this sense of euphoria I'm feeling? Like, is this what it feels like? And so, it was great. We were all sitting there, after the live show was done, and we were cheering and celebrating. So Donald Trump will be the 47th president of the United States. He becomes the first president in like a century in the United States to serve 2 non-consecutive terms. And I saw it characterized this way last night, the greatest comeback in political history. And I agree with the former president, soon now president-elect, that his movement, the MAGA movement, as they say, is probably the greatest political movement in the history of the United States. Certainly the most significant, whether you are part of it or not part of it or vehemently opposed to it. It's really hard to deny that. So we'll get to more nationally, but Trump losing Washington, that's not a surprise. He's got 39% to Kamala Harris's 58%. She gets all the delegates for Washington. Although, historically, he's doing better than in previous years. So remember what I said. I bet all of you guys that Donald Trump would break 40%. I think he still could do it. So 2016, he got 38.07. 2020, he did a little better, 38.77, but that's like a rounding error. 2024, right now, he's at 38.9. Okay? So that, I don't know, I feel like that tells you something. that he's slightly outperforming himself every year. I mean, that's still not great, but we are in a deep blue state.
He won the popular vote, it looks like. So first Republican in 20 years.
Well, and also what I'll say is, what I said it on the show yesterday, for us here on the West Coast, and I include Oregon in this and California, we're a Washington-based show, but we're all kind of dealing in the same horrible reality. I thought the best outcome would be and I think we even said it, if we lose everything but Trump wins by a landslide, that is a great outcome, because I think it could put the progressive wing of the Democratic Party on notice that, like, hey, people rejected this far left California progressive. And if Donald Trump wins, if he ends up winning all the swing states, I don't know if they've called any for Harris today, but they were kind of on the fence when we left last night. If he ends up just absolutely sweeping the swing states, winning the popular vote decidedly, that sends a message, right? So it couldn't be close. It had to be big, and it was big and significant, as they say, too big to rig. But we'll get to more on that in a moment. Let's talk about state, local politics. Devastated that Bob Ferguson is going to be our next governor. Dave Reichert outperforming the former president in our state, but still with 44% to Bob Ferguson's 56%. We'll see if that narrows a little bit, but Bob Ferguson will be the next governor of Washington state. I don't know that I've done a full unfiltered assessment of the Dave Reichert campaign. I think we supported it because the alternative, I mean, first of all, Dave is a wonderful person. And I do think that of all the Republican options, that's the person who would have and did perform the best. There's, of course, the Culp and Semi-Bird crowd on social being like, see, we told you Dave Reichert would lose. Yeah, Lauren Culp lost too. And I think it was by more than that. And Semi-Bird got 10% in the primary. So, give me a break. This idea is from some people that, we'd only win if we went with further to the right candidates. Makes no sense. It makes no sense. But that doesn't mean that you can't have candidates that can inspire people a little more. I mean, Dave Reichert's a pretty calm, chill dude. He just is who he is. He's not the kind of person who's going to walk in a room and get people absolutely raged out of control with excitement. And maybe that's something that you need. What I'll say about the Dave Reichert campaign, and I always call balls and strikes on the show. There's definitely some things, I would tell him behind the scenes, privately. But Dave, he values loyalty. And I think that became very clear to us. He brought in people who'd been with him for years to run his gubernatorial campaign, all very wonderful people. But, they hadn't run a campaign of this size and of this scope. And, running a congressional campaign is very different than running a campaign for governor. And I think that he needed some people who had been there, done that, to supplement his existing team. There's also the issue of money. Republican donor money has dried up in Washington because they've lost so many times. And so even wealthy donors don't want to give money anymore. You don't get wealthy by making bad investments. Bottom line. And they see Republican candidates in this state as a bad investment because they just continue to lose. And there's virtually no wins and I mean that. I mean, this is the worst case scenario of results for the Republican Party in Washington state came true last night. So I think the party's dead. I don't know how they get a donor base back to get excited about donating to candidates. Get any level of enthusiasm back. And I hate to just say but they're dead. I don't think there's coming back from that, at least not in the next 10, 20 years. There's no bench really. So they have to, we have to, I'll put it on, sure, us, we'll take the responsibility. There has to be an alternative. There just has to be an alternative. It can't be the Republican Party versus the Democrats anymore. Maybe when Donald Trump's gone, things will, people are so TDS here. There has to be it doesn't have to be an independent party, but I think candidates who run independent of the two-party system and see if they can get some viability that way, because that R is just the death knell. That R is you might as well just, I don't know. I mean, it's so many voters clearly see that and they're just like, nope, the other person. So I don't think you can continue to do the same thing and hope that results are going to be different. I mean, all the way up and down. And one thing I'll say, look, I have a lot to say about Bob Ferguson. He is a full-blown liar. He is a manipulator. He is power hungry. He not only lied to the people that he was trying to get to elect him, but he has, over the course of his time as Attorney General, alienated anyone who supports Donald Trump by suing Donald Trump so many times, speaking so poorly about Donald Trump. And so we expect him to serve the roughly 40% of voters in this state who support the former president and president-elect. I don't think so. He has been an grade F on transparency in his office as Attorney General when it comes to records. And I don't see why he would do anything different in the government. There's a million things I can say about him, and there's a million things I will say about him, and us holding his feet to the fire continues. We will be his worst nightmare for anything he does. And look, if he does good things for the state, great. And I should say that. If he does good things for the state, great. I hope he does. I want him to succeed. I want this. I hope he does half of what he promised the people of Washington in his lying campaign ads that he would do. I hope he is the public safety candidate. I hope he can find a way to hire more police officers and get the homeless crisis under control and get the drug crisis under control and restore safety to our streets. I hope he can do all of that. But nothing he's done in the last 25 years as a politician in Washington state has shown us that he is up to that task or that he cares about any of those tasks. That's the truth. He marketed himself as an honest-to-God, use the phrase change agent, a former King County councilman, 12-year attorney general, endorsed by all the governors before him. He's the change agent. Give me a break. So I have very low expectations. I'm genuinely terrified about what kind of governor he'll be. He knows the media will not ever hold him accountable. That's why he was able to lie so freely, so repeatedly on the airwaves, because, the media's not calling me out on it. Why would I not continue to do that? So you think that same media ecosystem that handed him the keys to the governor's office with virtually no pushback is going to all of a sudden hold him accountable as he's governor? No, the media ecosystem has failed. They have failed. They've failed you. And I know a lot of you know that. It's so plain as day. And then they'd be out there, Dave Reichert, all of a sudden, like the Ferguson campaign would leak little snippets to the Seattle Times. The Seattle Times would take them and automatically put up a hit piece on Dave Reichert. Oh, hit piece on Dave, hit piece on Dave, hit piece on Dave. And it was like Bob Ferguson. You can just blatantly lie with millions of dollars on TV. And it's like, no, we won't fact check that. So I'm very worried about a Bob Ferguson governorship. I will say, I think that he'll try to play it cool for the first year of his term and act like he is the moderate he campaigned as being. And then he'll just let loose. So, let's not be lulled into a false state of confidence over the next 6 months to a year. I don't think that the Democrats in Olympia will try to push anything to his desk that would be too risky of a bill for him to sign in the first year. But we'll see. They are pretty emboldened. But here's the other thing I want you to think about, and it's the dichotomy between now who will be in the White House and who will be in the People's House in Olympia. We are going to have a governor who is full-blown anti-Donald Trump. And we're going to have Donald Trump in the White House. And we're going to have Republicans in control of Congress. And we're going to have, in our state, Democrats in full control and a guy who spent the last 12 or the last 8 years suing Donald Trump. And like on the national stage, just bashing him in the governor's office. And not only that, we're going to have basically a clone of Bob Ferguson taking his place as Attorney General. Nick Brown, decidedly beating by exactly the same margins as in the governor's race, Pete Serrano. Pete Serrano with 44%, Nick Brown with 56%. And as I said, he is going to be a clone of what Bob Ferguson brought to the Attorney General's office. I want to play for you one of the very last campaign ads that Nick Brown put out on the airwaves in this election.
It's a real threat. We all feel it. Donald Trump could actually be president again, threatening our democracy and freedoms, including a woman's right to make her own healthcare decisions. I'm Nick Brown. As a JAG officer, prosecutor, and U.S. attorney, I've fought to protect our values. And that's what I'll do as Attorney General, because I'm not afraid to take on Donald Trump or anyone who threatens who we are in Washington.
There it is. That's what the next 4 years is going to look like. The next 4 years, Bob Ferguson is going to continue his obsession with Donald Trump. God, Lord knows he won't be able to work with Donald Trump. Donald Trump holds grudges, and so you think that that's not going to hurt Washington State to have a governor and now an attorney general who so strongly dislike the former president and who are going to spend the next 4 years trying to find ways to sue him. That's what they're going to do. And in doing so, Donald Trump is now the scapegoat. Anything they don't fix, anything going wrong, just as it was when Donald Trump was in office the first time, Democrats in our state will blame it on Donald Trump. That's what they spent 4 years doing during Donald Trump's first term. He was their favorite scapegoat. And hell, even after he left office, they blamed a lot of the lingering problems, created by their own incompetence on Donald Trump, even though he hadn't been in office. So Democrats love it. Make no mistake, Democrats in our state love that Donald Trump is in the White House because they get to keep their power, keep bloating the budget to slip money to their cronies and their allies without fixing anything at all. And then when things go wrong, they get to say, orange man bad. They don't play orange man bad. And voters in our state fall for it, apparently, hook, line, and sinker. And the media falls for it, too. Like King 5 put out an article today, like the honest to God, for the love of God. I got to read it because it just drove me nuts, but it speaks so much to the issue here. King 5's tweet, could Trump run again in 2028? What to know about presidential term limits, like already fear-mongering about, and that's what they're trying to do. They don't want to actually teach you about presidential term limits. We all know that a president can only serve 2 terms. The day after he's elected, they want to, again, raise the hackles to make you believe what the Democrats have pushed, that Donald Trump won't leave office, that he's going to be a dictator and he's going to stay in office, like by any means necessary. So it's all, again, they're going to blame Donald Trump for every problem. The combination between Nick Brown, I had Nick Brown on the show and I appreciated him and I hope he keeps up that transparency and that he'll talk to us and we'll be, respectful to him and call balls and strikes. But I asked him about the lawsuits that Bob Ferguson spent his entire last 2 terms as Attorney General filing against the Trump administration. And I asked him if he thought any of them were inappropriate or politically motivated. And he said no. To which, I gave him some examples, like family separation at the border. He said these things impact our state. But the point I was trying to make is that, he was so focused on suing Donald Trump, and he was less focused on actually doing his job as Attorney General of Washington State. And Nick Brown's retort to that was basically like, well, did these things impact Washingtonians? And I said, but to what extent? Family separation at the border, which was still a policy under the Obama administration, but I digress. It's like, did that? Would our time have been better spent as the Attorney General's office trying to go after some of the drug cartel, funneling fentanyl onto our streets that's killing people at record numbers, or going after the Trump administration for family separation, which, could you tie a couple families separated who live in Washington State whose family members tried to come across the border illegally and got caught? So you'd rather, again, that's all about political optics. Like, we're suing Trump for this cruel policy of family separation. Meanwhile, they don't see it as cruel that the drug cartel are funneling enough fentanyl to kill the entire population of Washington State onto our streets. Do you see what I mean by priorities? It's all about political optics. None of it's about actually doing what's right, what will make the biggest impact. That's the guy who's in the governor's office, and someone who agrees with all the lawsuits that he put forth is in the Attorney General's office. And if you don't think that's going to be a recipe for a really freaking annoying next 4 years and a potentially dangerous next 4 years, I don't know what to tell you. All right, I want to talk about the initiatives very quick. This is not a surprise to me. Only one of the initiatives is passing right now. Democrats did everything they could to undermine these initiatives. Again, that's just a fact. They did it in the light of day, and the media spent very little time calling them out for what they were doing. They weren't able to prevent the initiatives from getting on the ballot, even though we know they tried. They harassed lawful signature gatherers. The state party condoned it. They used lawfare to try to get the initiatives off the ballot, thrown out. They ended up passing a law that required basically that they put a little addendum on the initiatives on your ballot saying, well, if you pass this, bad things will happen. So they did all these things to stack the deck in their favor. Meanwhile, they painted Brian Haywood as this rich, horrible oligarch from California who was doing all this because he was greedy. And then the media didn't point out that, well, hey, you guys have actually raised, 6-7 times more money to oppose the initiatives from far wealthier people than Brian Haywood, like the Bolmers and Bill Gates and Nick Hanauer. So again, the media falls to this narrative that, one rich guy is trying to do all these things because he's greedy, while completely ignoring the fact the other side has raised far more money from some of the richest people in the world. It's insane. So, I mean, Brian Haywood seems pretty confident that I-2066 will pass. I am not so confident. I will be frank. I-2066, which would stop a bill or an effort in the future to do an outright ban on natural gas, is passing 51% of the vote to 49%. That's within a margin that I am not comfortable with. We know that Democrats sometimes surge late. So I don't feel confident in that. I did say yesterday, before the results, I thought that would perform the best. And unfortunately, it is performing the best, even at just 51%. The other three initiatives will fail. The initiative to repeal the Climate Commitment Act, Initiative 2117, failing decisively, 62% of the vote. But again, the way it was worded on the ballot, I had people on social media like, we hate that policy. I voted no. Super excited about their no vote. And it's like, whoa. You were supposed to vote yes then. So there's definitely some confusion around it, and that was intentional. The reason Democrats passed the bill to add an addendum onto the language is they intentionally wanted to confuse voters and tip the scales in their favor. Similar results, making the long-term care program optional. It will fail, 55%. SEIU, a powerful union, dumped a lot of money to put misleading ads on TV. I guess that's the nature of the game. And then Initiative 2109 to repeal the capital gains tax, I also correctly predicted would perform the worst, and it is 63% voting no. That will fail. And I said it yesterday, and I hate to just sound so sanctimonious, but when they use that as a backdoor income tax, we told you so. We told you so. And the media should have done its job to point out that right now, yes, the capital gains tax only applies to very wealthy people who make more than $250,000 a year on the sale of things like stocks and bonds. And that's how it's worded on the ballot. And for most people, they're like, well, that's never going to be me. But the media didn't do its job in pointing out the obvious, that Democrats have already tried to lower that threshold from $250,000 to $15,000, which is, that would apply to virtually any of us who have stocks or bonds and decide to sell them. And there's also been, and there's been emails that have been leaked about this, that, they were able to get a capital gains tax through, even though it's blatantly unconstitutional, because it is a tax on income. They somehow convinced the state Supreme Court to rule that it's an excise tax, despite the fact that IRS considers it a tax on income, and every other state in the union, red or blue, considers it a tax on income. But in Washington, poof, magically it's an excise tax. So what they want to do in doing this and getting a very biased state Supreme Court to agree with them is they're going to turn it into an income tax. They will use this to tax every single one of you. It was their back door into an income tax. And they might not call it an income tax, but if it looks like a duck, what is it? If it walks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. This is an income tax. And what they'll do is they'll lower the threshold, see how emboldened they are, and they will make sure, because they're not collecting as much revenue from the tax on capital gains as they thought they would. Because what happened? The really rich people who can left. They found a way to avoid paying it. Jeff Bezos took all his money and all his Amazon shares. He went to Florida and then he sold them there. And the $300 or so million our state would have collected from the tax on capital gains that they sold as being basically a tax on Jeff Bezos wasn't a tax on him at all. So because they're not making as much money as they wanted to make, because the really rich people have a way to avoid it, they will make sure it applies to not very rich people. And they will make sure it applies to the sale of your primary home. So to all of you who are sitting on a nice nest egg because you bought your home at a very advantageous time, you've made a lot of money on it, you're planning on selling it and moving to sunny Arizona or somewhere like that, well, the government's going to tax it at least 7%. I guarantee it. So again, I don't mean to sound sanctimonious, but sanctimony is just dripping because, and it's not you guys, you know that. It is going to absolutely impact every single one of us. Last night at our live coverage, we were at the Let's Go Washington party, and we talked to Brian Haywood. I want to play a little bit of it because there's this other thing lingering. We know what Bob Ferguson did to Tim Eyman when Tim Eyman was a thorn in their side. Tim Eyman, who ran the $30 car tabs initiatives and was a constant pain for Democrats on the initiative front. Well, Bob Ferguson ruined his life, bankrupted him, spent millions of dollars in taxpayer money suing him into oblivion. And I asked Brian last night, are you concerned that because of what you did, even though some of it failed, there's still, by the way, maybe 4 for 3 because they had to sign 3 initiatives into law earlier this year. You still made the unions dump millions of dollars into these efforts. Democrats had to donate millions of dollars to defeat these initiatives. So they're much, they won, but they're poorer. And so I said, are you worried that you're essentially going to get the Tim Eyman treatment?
If they try to make it personal, I'm not going to go quietly. I mean, I'll turn up the heat and we'll start exposing. You can't have 40 years of a single party and not have corruption.
Yeah.
You can't have 40 years and not have problems in the way things get done. And if that's what they do, I would rather not have, that's a waste of time to get in that fight. But if they come after me personally, that's, of course, I'll fight back.
Yeah, can you do me a favor, though? If Bob Ferguson comes after me personally, can I borrow some money to defend myself? Because I don't have deep pockets to hire an attorney. The Tim Eyman treatment would happen very quickly with me.
Yeah,
I'm just a podcast host, Brian.
Yeah.
So,
I've got your back.
I might need your help on that.
And I know people now who are sick and tired of this crap, right? I know people that are tired of a state that is so arrogant that it thinks it can just punish its citizens and get away with it.
I will tell you, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, first of all, it's been a pleasure to get to know you.
Same
I
here,
have
thank
really
you.
enjoyed every second of it. You are a good man. You're an honest person. You're doing it for the right reasons. Anybody who says otherwise is full of shit. But I will also
Goop
say...
in the jar.
Yeah, I will. One for the swear jar. I already am drinking because of the results. But I will also say that it has been so meaningful for us to, for the first time getting involved in the political process in any way, to be involved in this process, to watch voters exercise this right, to do what you guys did in such a short time frame is never been done before.
Right.
And to give voters the feeling, as you did, that they can make a difference, they can have their voice heard. 4 of the, maybe 4, hopefully, of the 7 passing. You mentioned Amber Golday and her family, the family of a little girl who was hit and killed because of the police pursuit law. So when you reflect on wins like that, that the legislature had to fix the police pursuit law because of what you did and what all these Washingtonians did, almost in honor of little Immaculée Golday. How does that make you feel?
I think that one in particular is sort of emotional, right? Because there was loss of life, and I feel bad even... I really feel bad. I don't think it's like Republicans don't feel good about using tragedy to sort of promote something. So I was very cautious about it. And then I met her parents, and her parents were so frustrated by the stupidity of the law. They had gone to the legislature. They had pleaded with the legislature to make changes. And people told them, no, you're going to have to go through this long process. You may have to do an initiative. It's really hard.
Yeah.
And so when we were doing the initiative and they found out we were doing it, it was rewarding to sort of receive their support because they had been, well, where do you turn? If you're an average citizen, where do you turn?
Yeah, where do you turn? And the initiative process. And the thing is, and that's the only thing that gives me a little hope. So these initiatives and the fact that they repealed taxes made them uniquely susceptible to the trick that Democrats played with having to put the fiscal impact on it that confused people, like pass this and money for education will disappear. But for instance, if you have some sort of other, like the reason Democrats, and this is actually strategically very sound of them, because there were 7 initiatives, they passed 3 into law in the legislature intentionally to keep them off the ballot because there was no way to manipulate them. One of them was about police pursuits. So there's no fiscal impact of getting rid of that, right? So it would have just read on the ballot, like, do you want to restore XXXYZ, whatever, for police pursuits? And then it was parental rights and then no state income tax. So because there's not a state income tax already, there would have been no addendum onto it. And so they believed that having those on the ballot would carry the other ones as well. So they smartly passed them. But there's an opportunity for Brian Haywood and Let's Go Washington to run other initiatives on non-taxing issues that can't be meddled with in that way. So I would anticipate that there's going to be some of that. We'll see if, again, they try to ruin his life, all of Tim Eyman. I would not put it past them because they are so power hungry and incredibly emboldened. All right, a couple more statewide races. Again, this is just such a disappointment. I mean, I can't mask it. It's horrible. The Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction, Chris Raikdahl, looks like he's heading toward a 3rd term. That is horrible news for families. It's horrible news for students. It's horrible news for the quality of our state's public education system, which has deteriorated under his first 2 terms. I would have loved to see Dave Olson win. Again, I don't know. It's a nonpartisan race, and so is it like people were going with the name they recognized or whatever it is? It's just heartbreaking to me, given all the education stories that we've covered, what we talked about in our documentary, Operation Indoctrination. If you don't know and you want to know how bad Chris Reykdal is for our public education system, watch Operation Indoctrination. It's across all our platforms. You can watch it for free. It's truly insane. Republicans, I think their greatest hope of capturing a statewide seat last night was the Commissioner of Public Lands. They're not going to do that either. Jamie Herrera Butler is trailing 47% to Dave Updegrove's 53%. So great. Now we have a Seattle-type progressive who is going to be in control of our public pristine lands in mostly conservative areas. I'm sure that that'll go well for farmers, ranchers, and landowners. Insane. All right. A little bit of maybe good news, but I'm not confident yet. State Supreme Court, Dave Larson narrowly beating Sal Mungia, who's never been a judge before in his life, but he's the guy that Democrats support and all the other Supreme Court justices support because they think that he'll just be a rubber stamp on Democratic policies. Sal Mungia is at 49.73 and Dave Larson's at 49.78. So pray to God that holds. In the 3rd Congressional District, a couple congressional races, I really thought that Joe Kent would pull this one off. And I don't, he could still in late votes, but Joe Kent in a rematch against Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez, 48% to 52%, not the result in national Republicans. And even Elon Musk spent a lot of money to try to flip that district back into Republican hands. It's only been blue for 2 years, but could not succeed. Maybe. We'll see. That hasn't been called yet. And then an interesting one over in the 4th, Dan Newhouse, a Republican congressman who voted to impeach Trump. And because of that, he has had challengers to the right of him. He is holding on to a seat for now, but again, way too close to call. He's got 50.35%. Jared Sessler has 48.03%. There was also a little chunk out for a write-in for a Democratic candidate over there. They didn't get much traction, but, I got to hope that Dan Newhouse hangs on to his seat there. He's a good guy. He committed a cardinal sin on the Trump side. Now, that angered a lot of Republicans, but I think he has a much better temperament. So we'll see what happens there. And then finally, for the congressional race, is 8th Congressional District, Carmen Goers being defeated by Kim Schreier. I don't know if we call this a swing district anymore. Frankly, Democrats won it in 2018 after Dave Reichert retired from Congress, and Republicans have thrown what they've got at it, and it just isn't working. And so, at least Congresswoman, at least if the incumbent is running. So Congresswoman Schreier looks like she's going to keep that seat, 54% of the vote. And that's sort of the East King County. So historically a swing district, or at least for the last 6 years. I don't know that we're going to continue to call it a swing district anymore. All right. I want to talk about the supermajority issue, but first, we had a special guest on the podcast last night, live from the election party, Dino Rossi. Dino Rossi, of course, infamously losing the 2004 gubernatorial race. Wait a second, winning it, then losing it, then winning it, then losing it, then losing it on a couple recounts. So, went to court. If you've lived here, you know the story. Ended up running for Senate and Congress unsuccessfully. And then he was at this party last night. I thought, oh my gosh, Dino Rossi. So we had some audio technical issues when his interview aired yesterday. I wanted to replay just a clip of it because I had asked him, from the outside now looking in, he's been out there supporting behind the scenes some Republican candidates. When I taped this interview with him, the results hadn't come in. So just keep that in mind, that we weren't sure how bad of a night it was going to be for Republicans. Turns out, very bad night. But I asked him about the viability of Republican candidates and the Republican Party in our state moving forward. What will tell you at the end of this, when the results are certified, whether the Washington State Republican Party is still a viable party in our state?
Well, I mean, the reality is that the Washington State Republican Party doesn't have a lot of money to do the things that, in the Democrats have unlimited money, essentially, when you go up against them. I mean, I was outspent in every race I ever had.
Yeah.
Ever. Even my state Senate races, I was outspent.
Yeah.
So, you just have to, do it a different way. And honestly, the opportunities with social media and other avenues make it affordable to contact people, and that's moving in that direction. And so it's not just the big TV stations where it costs you $700,000 to get 1,000 points to move any numbers, right? And when you're a candidate statewide, You have to do it in Seattle, and you have to spend that money in Portland when only 16% of the people can actually vote for you.
Yeah, Portland DMA, 100%.
Right, and
it's
Eastern
expensive.
Washington's
Yeah.
cheap. You can do it, that's not hard to do. And so it's very expensive to do it through television.
Yep.
But there are a lot of avenues now where I think people are kind of giving up on trusting the mainstream media
Yeah.
for their information. And slowly that's changing.
Yeah.
And the younger people definitely aren't buying it anymore either, which is good. So that opens up all sorts of avenues. I think,
Like this avenue.
like
Yes.
this avenue.
Yes.
But also, I got elected to the Senate when I was like 36, 37 years old. And so I've seen a lot of things over time. And, city of Seattle used to be all Republican. Mm-hmm. Now, Dan Evans came from there.
Yeah.
Ken Eikenberry came from there.
Yeah.
Joel Pritchard came from there. These are people that used to be lieutenant governors, congressmen, attorney generals, and governors. And then East King County used to be all Democrat. Then it went all Republican. Now it's all Democrat again. Eastern Washington used to be all Democrat. So the reality is, over time, these things change. And, because people, and you're seeing kind of a shift that's happening around the country right now. And I think the Trump phenomena of reaching out to various groups is going to make a difference. It's going to build a very different coalition for the Republican Party. And someone might not call themselves Republican, but they're voting Republican.
Yeah, so things do change over time, but how long? How long is that cycle? Is it going to happen in our lifetimes? Is it going to happen for our kids? I see a lot of people saying, I'm leaving Washington, and I get it. If you can pack up and leave, and that's just going to be better for you, or whatever you do for work, or your lifestyle and what you prioritize in your life, I cannot blame you for that. I know that I'm here to stay. Mike and I have already made plans. We're here to stay. We're going to retire here. We love it here. And that's the thing is my frustration is built on we've seen it better. We've seen the state better off. We've seen people better off. We've seen what happens when the regulation is less on businesses, when crime is less and businesses in the economic engine of our state can flourish. And I'd like to get back to that place. It's just, how bad do things have to be? What is it going to take well, first of all, I know what it's going to take. The media has to be honest. So much of this could be fixed if the media was truly unbiased in the way that it covered the party in power. And in the way it has to make that connection for voters that this is happening because of this. The homeless crisis and the drug crisis and the crime, it's not just it's just happening. It's no, that's happening because of these decisions. The media has to make that connection for voters. It's not biased to make that connection. It's the truth. Our fentanyl crisis. Well, you can tie how bad it is now back to the 2 years of experimenting with the decriminalization of hard drugs. You have to tie that and frankly, the amount of welfare type programs that we offer in the Seattle area for people to come here and get free stuff and be able to smoke their fentanyl and inject their fentanyl and their drugs out in public and have no consequences for it, not be bothered. Be able to set up a homeless camp in a park 20 feet from where kids are playing. And because, we just love our homeless neighbors, we're going to let them be there and smoke crack or whatever it is in a park next to kids. And it's come on, man. That's what's made it so bad here. We can't have this permissive environment anymore. And the media has to be the one to make that connection. And I don't know that they have it in them anymore. So in absence of that, what do? We're doing what we can, but at the same time, we need this to be exposed to movable Democrats. We have some who watch the show, but we need, people, Democrats who see what's going on to wake up and to expect more of the media. All right, coming up next, we're going to talk about the supermajority situation. First, if you're thinking about moving out of the state, I'm seeing a lot of you. This is probably the best ad for Wes Jones I could ever run. I've seen a lot of you in the comments saying, that's it, we're leaving. Well, if you do, please call our friend Wes Jones at Wes Jones & Associates to sell your home. Wes and his team have an innovative marketing strategy to make sure you get the most possible eyeballs on your listing. And when Mike Boggs retired from the Seattle Police Department and decided to move out of his home of 30 years to Arizona, you know who he called? Wes Jones.
So the concerns were, is it presentable enough to sell quickly to get the price we want? Wes came out and met with us, and we told him what our concerns were. And he mentioned the concierge service, and we did take advantage of it. It was such an easy process. Wes is a really great guy, and his team is amazing, and the communication is great. So the whole process was great.
Yeah, so he's happy with the results, and we have many great stories and testimonials of folks who've talked to Wes Jones. Wes has been doing this for a long time, so he's been through the ups and downs in the market. We'll see how the market fares and how the economy is when Donald Trump takes office and all that. But if you think about leaving the state, at least call Wes. Yeah, we have a great way to close things out. Sellwithwes.com, sellwithwes.com, a better way to sell your home. Okay, so one of the big narratives is, are we so lost that we're going to give Democrats a supermajority in Olympia? They have been adding to their majorities. They already control the House and the Senate and obviously the governor's office, but they are this close to having a supermajority in the state Senate. We are still waiting for some of the results to give us more clarity here. So I'm not going to give you a decisive answer, but we had already been talking about the must-win seats for Republicans. They don't have to win all of them. But of the at least 7, they had to in the Senate avoid a net gain of 4, which would give Democrats a supermajority. So let's take through the results in some of these races. The 5th legislative district, and again, we're focusing on the Senate, not that there's not a concern in the House about a supermajority. It just won't manifest as soon as the Senate one could, which could be like tomorrow. What are you laughing at, Nicole?
Because this graphic is wrong and it says representative.
Oh, Nicole, I didn't even notice that. This is state Senate. State Senate. Chad Mockendon's the Republican trailing to Bill Ramos, 47% to 52%. Not the result we want there. State Senate, or maybe it is the result you want. Yeah, you do you. State Senate in the 10th. This one's razor thin. I'm tired. Ron Muzal is the incumbent. He is trailing. But the why does that say Beltran? Is that who that is? Is that the right name? Hold on. Janet St. Clair is who that should be. I don't know why that says Beltran. Look at us. We're 0 for 2. 0 for 2. Ron Muzal, but it's 49.77% to 50.12%. But Ron Muzal, this was the case the last time he ran for state Senate, and then he came back a little bit in late ballot counts. So I'm hopeful there in the 10th. The next one is Beltran. Going to the 14th, Curtis King and Maria Beltran. Curtis King winning decisively, so that's a good result there for Republicans. He's got 57% of the vote to 43% of the vote, jumping ahead to the 17th. Again, this is state Senate. Paul Harris is winning, but just by a little bit, to Martha Keither, the Democrat, 49%. Too close to call. Republicans got to hope that holds there. Moving on again to state Senate for the 24th legislative district. Marsha Kelbon, 44%, and Mike Chapman, the Democrat, is winning there, 56%. Another must win really for Republicans that they are not winning. State Senate in the 28th, Maya Espinoza with 46%. Twina Nobles, the Democratic incumbent, 54%. She will keep her seat there. And then down in the 18th, Brad Benton needs to win that seat. It's close, but he is not winning right now, 49% to 51% for the Democratic challenger, Adrian Cortez. So there are a lot of those races are too close to call. After the next ballot drop at around 4 p.m. today, we'll have a better idea of the numbers and where it is stacking up. A supermajority would be a disaster. A supermajority in the Senate alone won't be as much of a disaster, obviously, as a supermajority in both. But what you see is a pattern. Democrats are slowly adding to their majorities. And if they both get to the point where they have supermajorities, it's done. I mean, they can push through any policy, no matter how fringe, no matter how crazy. Rent control. Statewide rent control is a very realistic possibility. I mean, and that's as fringe as it gets. Even in California, they're like, we don't want rent control here. But they could, without considering anybody else's arguments, push through statewide rent control. So we talked to Sean Flynn with the Rental Housing Association of Washington every week. We got him on today, and he and I are obviously both just like, oh my God, these results. But we talked about that, about the worst case scenario possibilities for some of the policies that Democrats might push forward now that they are strengthening their majorities. Sean Flynn, here we are.
Post-election morning.
Yeah, we were saying before we started, we both look a little tired today.
Yeah, I think we both feel a little tired today. It was a heck of a season this year.
It was.
And lots of late nights last night, and now we have the results, and we can hash through those and
Yeah.
figure out what they mean. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, some aren't decided yet. There's some Senate races and some state house races that we're still trying to wait and see where things land. Really bad night for Republicans. I don't know how you could spin it any other way. So in terms of the Rental Housing Association and rental laws and some of those issues we've been dealing with, how are you feeling today?
Well, the RHA is a bipartisan association, right? So we support both Democrats and Republicans. We support a lot more Democrats than we used to because there's just a whole lot less Republicans. And what RHA finds, and I think other folks who work in the political sphere will tell you as well, is that when you have a balanced legislature, you get better law. Maybe not the law that one side necessarily wants in totality, but that's the point of the legislature. The legislature, it's called Congress, and Congress means to meet, right? It's a time for us as a society to send our elected representatives to discuss the topics that are important. And through that discussion, through that back and forth between folks with varying viewpoints, you get a better policy, in my opinion. And when you have a supermajority on one side or the other, whether it be Democrats or Republicans, you have a tendency to get policy that is not from the process of mediation, but from the process of strictly power politics. And oftentimes that's not great policy.
100%. And it gets to the point where they would have to make a conscious decision to include Republicans or dissent or disagreement in their conversations, because if you have a supermajority, you really don't have to, right? You can just say, we don't care what you have to say, what you think. We're going to pass the policy we want to pass. So do you have faith in, if that's where it ends up, in the Democratic Party in this state still working across the aisle if they are not required to pass bills?
I worry about any unchecked power in government.
Yeah.
That being said, the Democratic senators that I work with on a regular basis believe in reciprocity and include folks across the aisle, other ranking members, that sort of thing. But we haven't had a supermajority yet. So we'll see how that goes with things in Olympia. But I would hope that the lawmakers respect the process and really reach out to folks of varying opinions on their bills to really try to get some dissent in there because it makes a better bill.
Yeah. You know what? Sean, we seem so sad. I just thought of a good result from last night. Springer.
He did.
That's somebody who, without him, I think, he's a good, reliable no vote on some of the more extreme, maybe rental policies as opposed to his progressive opponent, Melissa Demian. So, there you go.
That's a great news. And look, hey, this is the first time we've had a really competitive Supreme Court race for a long, long time. And so that gives me hope, right? I really like the fact that I dislike it when we have unopposed races. That makes me sad about democracy, that we don't have a choice, right? Because no one else wanted to run. So the fact that we've got a real race in the Supreme Court this time, that's great news too.
Look at us. Okay, we're going to turn this thing upside down, find some little positivity things. So I think the next thing we're looking at, obviously, is the legislative session. If there's one big, bright thing on your horizon that you're concerned about in that session, what is it?
It's rent control.
Yeah.
We're very, very concerned about rent control. It is a failed policy everywhere it's ever been tried. And if you look at California last night, there was Proposition 33. There was an attempt to roll back some what little guardrails they had left on rent control. They were attempting to expand rent control in California, and it was defeated soundly. It was last I checked, it was 66% of Californians, this is a liberal state, voted against the rent control package. So it is a policy that even California has, the liberalists in California think is a dumb idea because they've had to live with it. And Yeah, so that gives me hope from last night is that even the Californians think rent control is dumb, and I'm hoping that our legislators and lawmakers will understand that as well.
Yeah, and I think how I could see this happening is if they do pass rent control, they'll make it an emergency clause, right? Because they don't want it to be subject to a referendum, so they'll find a way to call it an emergency. But that to me, because Let's Go Washington kind of has the initiative signature gathering thing down, that would be a much easier initiative to run, because one of the challenges with the initiatives on the ballot is they included that little explainer like, oh, if you pass this, then this will happen. But with rent control, it would be a much more like, do you want rent control or not, essentially? So I could see that being a very popular initiative. I mean, a lot of lies and spending probably to keep it. But so if it is passed, I see a path to undo it. But let's hope it isn't passed in the first place. So
yeah, and we're going to work real hard to try to make sure it's not passed in the first place. Yeah. But that being said, if this comes to an initiative, other states have shown us that the general population understands that rent control is a bad idea. Yeah. And if messaged right, last night told us that again, that your average voter understands rent control is a terrible policy. And I'm hoping that the lawmakers in Olympia this session understand that as well.
Yeah. Well, you and I have a lot more to talk about, some of this stuff like nationally as well. So we'll save that for next week when everything's a little more crystal clear. But Sean Flynn, we'll keep just trying to push sanity together, okay?
Yeah, common sense.
Common sense. As my hat says, make common sense great again. It triggers the liberals from a distance. But then they see it and they're like, oh, are you talking about my common sense or your common sense? We're going to continue these segments with RHA every week as we approach the legislative session to see what kind of policies are pushed. I mean, the whole landlord eviction issue that's a mess is really what inspired us to start focusing on these issues. If you're a landlord, save yourself. Become a member of RHA. It's $260 a year, and they'll have your back in all this insanity and be pushing for good policies. So it's just a good kind of insurance policy to have the professionals on this stuff in your corner. All right, what kind of depressing stuff do I want to go next? I'm rolling through all these results, just absolutely insane. Oh, I wanted to, so we were talking about the Roanoke conference. And by the way, Nicole, do you want to just show your hat quick? Because you got one too. These are the last two Make Common Sense Great Again hats we have. Pulled them out of the closet for today. You look cute. Today. You look much better in a hat than I do. Was itching my noggin.
They do itch. They itch me as well. I have a big forehead, so they never sit right on my forehead, and they
I don't think you have a big forehead. I think your forehead is lovely.
I don't know, they look great.
Anyway,
America shirt.
Do you want to? We're going to the Roanoke conference this year, right?
I don't know. Are we?
I would assume so. I like going out there.
I mean, it's fun.
Yeah. So we're teasing the Roanoke conference. We're advertising it this week for them, and it's the largest political gathering in the state for people right of center. I'm sure it'll be very interesting this year. It'll be this push and pull between people being excited about Donald Trump, people being depressed about the state results, etc. It's happening January 24th through the 26th. Their keynote speaker this year is Coleman Hughes. He's host of the podcast Conversations with Coleman and author of The End of Race Politics, an Argument for a Colorblind America. They have all sorts of good panels about local politics and what's happening, education, all of those things. And it's just it's fun to go out there. Mike and I always take the dogs, and Ocean Shores is so beautiful, and there's so much to do, and good fish food. What do you call it? Seafood, not fish food. Good seafood. Nicole hates seafood. She's giving me a weird look right now. But they have no more early bird discounts. They sold the first 100, but they do still have special discounts for students, active duty military, and law enforcement. So if you want to find out more, go to roanokeconference.org. That's roanokeconference.org. The only reason, Nicole, I sounded skeptical about whether we'd go, because we go every year. I remember the reason I didn't go a couple years ago. I was trying on wedding dresses. Remember? My mom was in town, so I couldn't go because I was trying on wedding dresses. Yeah, Daniel, one of our subscribers, reminded me of why I wasn't there. The only reason I was a little bit like, am I going, is aren't I going to D.C. for something for the Libertarian Party? Is that not the same time?
Weekend.
Not that weekend? Okay, then I don't see why we wouldn't go. All right.
We'll have to check.
Seattle just is going to own its own failure. And we know that, right? Like, they're voting for it and they kind of deserve what they get. But one of the things that we have said over and over is Seattle policies don't stop in Seattle. So much of it is exported to Olympia, which is then exported to the entire state. And now, to make things worse, Seattle is sending an actual self-proclaimed socialist to the state house. Let's talk about it in our segment, Unbelievable. I mean, this is as bad as it gets. this might be the worst result because of how decidedly he won. So in the 43rd legislative district, the race for state representative in the heart of Seattle. So this is Seattle's district that they go and represent Seattle in the state house. 68% of voters there, holy smokes, sent Sean Scott, a socialist, to Olympia over Democrat Andrea Suarez, who literally goes out and cleans up homeless encampments and helps people living on the streets.
I mean,
This is
cheaters.
mental.
They were terrible.
Well,
Terrible
they were
to
also,
her.
and that's the thing is Andrew Suarez would put out signs, they'd rip them up. We played a video all the time. They'd go out, the lefties would rip them up. It's like a man in a skirt ripping her signs out of the ground. I hate to say it, but that's exactly what who I thought it would be. It was just, and Sean Scott wasn't out there condemning his supporters saying, hey, stop doing this. So literally sending a socialist, someone who didn't just support police defunding, supported police abolition, someone who celebrated rioting, someone who was supporting the Hamasniks who were out on I-5 blocking traffic to Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, which is domestic terrorism. Someone who wrote an article saying that, things in Seattle were getting done faster when police cars were on fire. That is the person that the most derelict House district in the state decided to send to Olympia by a very sizable margin. And I mean, we haven't really talked much about this because I didn't want to give them attention. Do you have an Antifa clip from last night? So we said that Antifa was already regardless of the outcome of the presidential election, we're going to riot up on Capitol Hill. And they were posting their flyers and everything. Well, there's swear words in this, right?
Lots of
We
them.
didn't have time to bleep it out. There were so many of them. So if you got a child, just turn it down for 30 seconds. Okay. Antifa last night.
Get back to Plaza, motherfuckers! Nobody likes you here! This fucking neighborhood would kill you if we had the chance! Get the fuck out of here, pigs! Go fucking die! And guess what? When you fucking
We just ask you to give the officers safe working space so that way they can do their job. Make arrests for criminal acts without interfering with them doing their job. It was our intent to have a safe, peaceful First Amendment event. However, there are criminal acts that were committed within the crowd. We'd like to return to a First Amendment event without any criminal acts. So we ask that you don't interfere with the officers.
Get the fuck out of here, bitch!
Insane. And you see how neutered Seattle police are. I mean, they did go in and ultimately take down people and make arrests. Some guy screaming in their face, this whole neighborhood would murder you if we could. Is that not a threat? Does that not rise to, I'm all for free speech, right? But that's borderline. That's insane. And those are the people Sean Scott supports. Those are the people who support Sean Scott. Those are the people, and they're the exact same people. It's the same Antifa group that protests all sorts of things, whether it's pro-Palestine, pro-Hamas, anti-police, anti-capitalism, anti-Donald Trump, whatever it is. It's the same group of people. Those are the people supporting Sean Scott. Those are the people Sean Scott celebrated for their actions in 2020. It's insane to me, Seattle. And I'd feel better about it if it was just impacting you, but now you've sent the rest of us a socialist. Now you sent the rest of us a socialist to make policies to govern the rest of our lives. 68% of the vote. It's beyond my comprehension. I don't know how to fix this. I never thought I could fix it on my own. I don't know how to make sense of it or how to fix it. I don't know how to put myself in that headspace where that's the guy. You got record overdoses happening on the sidewalks in front of you, and you think to yourself, you know what we should do? Let's send a socialist to Olympia to fix this. Not the lady who actually gets people help for their addiction. Crazy stuff. You might even say it's unbelievable. All right. So the election is, it's behind us. Results are still coming into gaining clarity. And so I think for Donald Trump, the stocks were doing great today. I think for those of us who care about the economy, Donald Trump is certainly the better option. And so that's a good win nationally. Zach Abraham and his team at Bulwark Capital, they're going to be having one of their Know Your Risk live webinars coming up on November 21st at 3:30 p.m. And it's specifically to look at these national events, what happens in the election, how it could impact your retirement portfolio, maybe just make you a little less anxious, give you some peace of mind, to talk to Zach and his team, the analysts, hear from them, ask them questions if you would like to. You can also just passively listen in and just try to get an understanding of, okay, how does the presidential election impact my retirement portfolio, if at all, and how can I better manage the risk? Risk management is Bulwark's number one focus. So remember, you only get one retirement. You know that. I know that. You don't want to ruin it by having someone managing your retirement portfolio who is not actively monitoring things like what's freaking happening around the world and in our country. So check out their Know Your Risk live webinar coming up November 21st, 3:30 p.m. KnowYourRiskRadio.com. That's KnowYourRiskRadio.com. All right. Not only did Kamala Harris lose, and I think it'll come in and she's going to be, is she speaking right now? Soon. I don't think she's come to the stage yet.
Oh yeah, it might be starting right about now.
Yeah, I didn't see her come to the stage yet, so she might be running a little bit late. She did that thing where it's like
shocking.
But this is the thing about women. As a woman, I am a woman. Hillary Clinton did the same thing. Now, I don't remember, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, because I haven't been as alive as long as maybe some of you have to witness more elections. Didn't it used to be pretty standard? Like Hillary Clinton, I remember very well. She had all these people, they thought she was going to win. She had this whole thing set up where the glass ceiling would break ahead of her, and she did not come out. And people went home like in tears.
Yeah, I think I do remember
And then,
that.
right. So is it kind of a thing where, first of all, and I don't think Donald Trump didn't concede the election because he thought it was, so maybe it's just new, sort of this is the way we're going to do things now. But women, don't be the ones who look petty. You got to stand up and be like, oh, you won, I'm going to be the bigger person or whatever it is. I mean, Trump wasn't the bigger person in 2020. When he lost, he did lose. Okay. So yeah, it's just, she didn't come out. She should have come out, especially so decisive. Like it's very clear she's going to lose.
And even if you came out and said, we're still going to wait on results before I concede whatever it is, but just all of those 100%. People are out there waiting for you until 2 a.m. and you don't come out and say, hey, thanks for being here. We're just going to let the rest of the results come in and I'll talk to you all tomorrow.
100%. It shows what kind of leader you are. Like all those people are there for you.
Sore loser.
Talk to them. Don't be a sore loser. But anyway, the best clip of the evening on cable news, there's two. We're saving one of them for our closing sanity check. But the other one, so CNN, so not only did Kamala Harris lose, she performed way worse than Joe Biden. Like people were not buying what she was selling. There's this great moment where Jake Tapper on CNN realizes he's shocked. I don't know how he's shocked, just how poorly Kamala Harris performed.
Again, underperforming the president in places. So you asked, are there any places that the vice president is overperforming Joe Biden in 2020? So we could show you that as well. We just bring that out here. Harris overperforming in 2020.
Holy smokes.
There you go. So let this go away and see if there's anything on the east side there.
Literally nothing?
Literally nothing.
Literally not one county?
By 3% or more.
Not one county by 3% or more. I mean, that's pretty insane stuff. So it's not a surprise, though. And look, I don't know if it's local politics that was sort of like weighing me down a little bit, but I was very concerned about the presidential race. One, because it was the first time I was supporting Donald Trump, and I'd be like, of course, the first time I vote for him, he loses, But I think I just had this like sort of beaten down feeling. And so I did not go into the night confident that he would win, especially not by the margins it seems like he's poised to win by. But, it is true that it was just fascinating to watch CNN and MSNBC, and all of a sudden these pundits who had ignored these narratives for so long were like, well, maybe it wasn't such a good idea to, just push Kamala Harris through as the nominee. Maybe there should have been some sort of process. It's like, you think? You should have been talking about that a couple months ago if you really wanted to win. But it was clear that they were hook, line, and sinker with the Democrats. Then after it didn't work, they were sort of like, well, maybe what everybody was on the other side was saying this entire time was true. Maybe we should have given that some credence. I don't know. But it's an absolutely decisive victory for Donald Trump. And I will say, if it turns out that he wins every single swing state, I hope it's a wake-up call for the Democratic. Apparently everywhere but Washington is going to wake up. But even in LA. So, and I don't know how much this has to do with Donald Trump or just the fact that the LA District Attorney, George Gascon, was so bad, so soft on crime, releasing criminals, all this stuff. So he was absolutely decimated and removed from office in LA last night. Nicole, do you have the results up of what it was?
Yeah, it was 61.5% of the vote going to Hochman.
Yeah.
And then Gascon had 38.5.
38.5. So a progressive DA in LA County, absolutely, like, people are like, screw you. That's a resounding defeat. And that's why, like, I see that. I'm like, Washington State, this could have been us. We could have been the ones pushing out people like George Gascon. But instead, we're playing games and we're sending the same people back to Olympia. So George Gascon released a statement. It's just insane. He said, the rightward shift across America last night is heartbreaking. Democrats have a long road ahead, but the work is more vital than ever, and our commitment will not waver. Nevertheless, I have called Mr. Hochman, and I wish him the best as Los Angeles County's next district attorney. I'm deeply proud of what we've accomplished over the past 4 years, you shouldn't be, and grateful to the communities who have been and will always be at the heart of our criminal justice reform. So, I mean, he blames it on this rightward shift. Like, dude, it's not a right... I mean, there's nowhere left to go from you. Anything else is a rightward shift from you because you're as far left as it gets. But it's like, oh, right wing. It's like, no, like, you're as far left. So, like, is it right? Anything? I guess, like, yeah, I'm probably right wing compared to George Gascon. But it's like that he has to blame it on this rightward. The only way I could lose is if there's this mega movement nationally. It's like, no, you did a shitty job and you made your community less safe when your job was to make your community more safe. And so even in LA County, they decided that you had to go. So no introspection, right? No self-reflection about, oh, maybe I shouldn't have taken those positions. Maybe I should have done a better job. No, orange man bad. That's always, again, favorite scapegoat. Blame it on Donald Trump. All right, I've got to play. Usually I wouldn't. I hate playing clips from The View on the show just because they're always all over and it's like, well, that's a little lowbrow for us. But it was funny watching when they called, especially after they called Pennsylvania for Donald Trump last night. Conservative X was like, oh, I can't wait to watch The View tomorrow. They're like, for the first time ever, I'm anticipating The View. I'm going to like set my DVR. And if you were looking for unhinged ramblings, The View did not disappoint.
I don't know. I'm profoundly disturbed. I think if you look at the New York Times this morning, the headline was America makes a perilous choice. I think that in 2016, we didn't know what we would get from a Trump administration, but we know now. And we know now that he will have almost unfettered power. And so I worry, not about myself, actually. I don't worry about my station in life. I worry about the working class. I worry about my mother, a retired teacher. I worry about our elderly and their Social Security and their Medicare. I worry about my children's future, especially my daughter, who now has less rights than I have. And I remember my father telling me many, many years ago that I was the first person in his family to enjoy full civil rights. And now I have less civil rights than I had when he told me that.
What rights did we lose last night? Nicole, can you check? Was there an announcement about the rights that we would be losing last night?
I didn't see any.
Interesting.
Maybe
I'm confused.
The right for men to
did
compete
people of
in
color
sports, so I'm not sure.
Did people of color lose rights last night?
I don't think so.
That's interesting because I know that like a lot of them voted for Donald Trump, so certainly they wouldn't have voted for someone who's going to take away their rights, right? It's unhinged.
Think so.
It's absolutely unhinged. It's just crazy. We have a delicious clip from actually it's kind of profound profound and CNN in the same sentence from CNN. That's going to be our closing sanity check. We'll get to your daily subscriber show poll questions, comments coming up. First, I've encouraged you guys to take the First Mark Challenge. There's no reason not to. There is genuinely no reason not to. Everyone needs insurance, whether it's your home or car, whatever it is. If you are dealing with your insurance by yourself, why would you do that when you can have First Mark Insurance handle it for you for free? It starts by taking the First Mark Challenge, as I have done, as Nicole has done, as Daryl and Meg have done, and seeing if they can find you better insurance for the same price, better insurance for less money, see if you're underinsured, overinsured. They handle all the hard work for you. You just got to schedule an appointment and you can do it over the phone. Firstmarkinsurance.com, firstmarkinsurance.com. Just to give you one example, Michelle, an undivided viewer, they got a renewal statement from their existing insurance and it went up from $3,000 to $8,000. So she's like, that's it. We're listening to Brandi. Her and her husband talked to First Mark Insurance and they were able to save them half, 50%. And she said, now we can continue our discussions about getting a travel trailer. So yeah, don't pay more for your insurance than you need to, or get insurance you don't even need, or be underinsured, God forbid, and not have something in case of a disaster. So just call First Mark Insurance. It's free. You don't ever pay them anything. Have them handle it for you. FirstMarkInsurance.com. FirstMarkInsurance.com. The very best part is they work for you. All right, in our daily subscriber show poll, I wanted to get your guys' temperature about Donald Trump at the top of the ticket and what happened with Washington State Republicans last night. There was a horrible night. Worst night I've ever seen for the Washington State Republican Party. It is absolutely dead. Sorry. Sure, some of them don't like to hear that, but if you're not admitting that the party is dead in its current form, that's not living in reality. You can agree to disagree. So I asked again, do you believe Republicans in Washington State performed poorly, primarily because Donald Trump was at the top of the ticket? Yes or no? On Patreon, 20% saying yes, 80% saying no. Carrie says the Republican Party needs to rebrand itself from top to bottom. Stop letting the Democrats define what Republicans stand for. This was a major problem even before Trump. The Republican Party has been in a state of major dysfunction for over 20 years. The party needs an influx of Gen X and millennial leadership to move the masses away from the socialistic orientation of Western Washington. Mark Rowetter. Pretty much the entire country didn't care, so it must be something else, like state of Washington Republican leadership. Interesting. Leslie said, Reichert is so undynamic. No energy from that guy. His interview yesterday, I thought he was about to fall asleep. That's what I felt. And he wasn't the most energizing candidate. That's for sure. Mm-hmm. But maybe, it's hard to know what voters want out of Republican in this state anymore. Nicole from Enumclaw says, no, we have to figure out a way to get money back into the Republican races in this state. The party just writes this state off because we're always so blue. We need the money for ads to combat the opposition. Well, you've got to show them you can win, or else it's a waste of money, right? So you got to excite people in some meaningful way, or else the national party is not going to give you any money. Very similar breakdown over on locals, 2080. SLK9 says, I think too many people in this state do not vote based on policy, or they just keep drinking the Kool-Aid. For the life of me, I do not understand why Inslee was elected for the next term and how Bob Ferguson got as far as he did. Lies can only get you so far, right? Right? Mm-hmm. Right? Well, apparently they can get you really far. They can get you into the governor's mansion. And I'll tell you, now that he's there, we are going to have a hell of a time getting him out of the governor's mansion. Do I run for governor, Nicole?
I mean, you might
have to. I don't know who else is going to do it. Not as a Republican, though.
Yeah, I used to think that it had to be a party, and now I'm thinking that's the only way to get someone other than the Democrats in there.
It's hard to win as an independent, though. Oh, my God. Wouldn't that be the funnest race, though? First of all,
we say that because you can't get the support and the funding, but Republicans aren't
have no money either. They have no money anyway.
So
wouldn't it be the funnest thing for me to debate Bob Ferguson?
Yes.
Oh, my God.
Oh, that'd be so
Just
fun.
For that, it would be enjoyable. Mm-hmm. Just for that, it would be. He wouldn't agree to. There's no way he'd agree to debate.
You don't think he'd do any debates?
Oh, 100% no.
Well, that
not
would be
one
very
chance.
telling, wouldn't it?
Not a chance. Anyway, that would be fun. But we get to do a podcast for a job.
I know,
trading that
great.
for political office sounds like a real crappy trade. All right, questions and comments. Rob, mine. We need to do a Bob F treatment to Bob F and sue for every action he takes. We need to tie his hands so bad he cannot ruin this state. Well, that would require us getting judges that would side with us, which is also increasingly hard. And now he's going to pack the courts with his appointees, who are going to be even worse than Inslee appointees. This is very, very bad stuff. Anna Ratana. Is that how you pronounce your name? Because if it is, I love it. Anna Ratana.
I don't know.
Trump winning makes swallowing Ferguson's win a little easier to swallow. I agree. Swallowing Ferguson's, I was like, where's that going? No, I agree. And we said that yesterday. Look, if it's a worst case scenario, and it was worse even than I expected. I expected a couple wins for Republicans.
At least a couple.
This is worse than even my worst imagination. But yeah, Trump, we still left the party last night feeling good. Because I don't think I would have done a show today or gotten out of bed if Kamala Harris. You think I'm joking? I slept on the couch at the studio last night. I didn't get back here till what time? Yeah, I probably got back here like
midnight.
12.
Yeah.
I have a confession to make. Do you want to hear it? In case you haven't already seen it.
What?
I was really hungry. There's a couple confessions I have to make. I have to make two.
No.
I got back. We were working all day. We didn't eat lunch. We didn't eat dinner. We had some snacks at the thing. So I got back. I immediately ate a couple of your cheese squares from the fridge.
I wasn't. I thought that.
Have they gone bad?
Well, the fridge is making them taste a little funky to me. Did they taste all right to you?
They tasted fine.
Okay, good.
And that wasn't enough. Because I was like, 2 cheese squares, like, I'm hungry.
It's like they're getting frozen and then unfrozen. And so, to me, the last one I ate tasted funny. So, I'm glad that one didn't taste funny to you.
I ate 2 of your cheese squares. And then I was like, I am so hungry right now. So, of course, I opened up Uber Eats. I'm really embarrassed about this. Eastside Weight Loss Clinic, Ryan Coogan, plug your ears. Dr. Ryan Coogan, I need you to plug your ears because I don't want you to hear this. I open up Uber Eats. There was only like 2 things open. It was Taco Bell and McDonald's.
Which one? Both?
No, I Uber ate McDonald's last night.
Why don't you just stop on your way home?
Because there was nothing open. Everything was closed. I slept here last night.
No, I mean for Uber, you could order an Uber Eats.
Because I was just going by and I was like, I am so hungry. So I was sitting I was watching ABC News Live and like David Muir just looking exhausted, eating McDonald's, and I you know what? No, I don't care. I don't care.
It's okay. It's a treat. Sometimes.
The thing is about Eastside Weight Loss Clinic is you just have to you can have stuff like that. You just got to make sure it's not your regular way of eating. So anyway, I had to tell you because I hid it in the garbage can. You were so embarrassed. I just kind of tucked it, just kind of tucked it down so you didn't see that I ate McDonald's last night.
Weighing on you.
I got to be honest, I don't feel great. And it's the McDonald's for sure. Or it's your weird cheese.
What did you eat?
I don't.
McDonald's.
That wasn't part of the equation. I might have had some chicken nuggets. I might have had some French fries.
Okay.
So anyway,
French fries are delicious.
Okay, let's keep going. Yeah, I just had to let you know. It's like this. I'm so glad I got that off my chest.
Off your chest.
Yeah, I am. Martin, Washington State is so cooked after the election. Hello, California 2.0, but without the huge economy. Coyote J, I'm in Seattle. We had a better R turnout here. I am proud that my tribe almost entirely voted R and Alaska went red. I may have to leave Seattle, sadly, with a heavy heart. I hope you don't leave because this is going to make it more difficult to win. Janelle says, $20 super chat. Thank you. On this very super depressing, most pissed off day, after how hard we've all fought and lost, I just keep being reminded what Dory would say, not to let it affect our personal lives. So let's all take a good dose of Dear Dory. I agree. Can't let it. You got to move on. And Antifa's out riding the streets telling cops they wish they were dead. And here we are. We're doing our jobs. We're going to continue to try to save the state. And look, push good policy. I mean, the initiatives that did get passed in the legislature were good policy. We can still have some wins. We can still do things that matter. And we can do our most important job here, which is hold people like Bob Ferguson accountable. And there should be no question that we will do that job better than anyone else in the media over the next 4 years. A. Camaro says Washington State needs its own electoral college to give fairness to the rest of the state. Edward Owen. Please hold powerful accountable with Ferguson. I know you will, but he made a lot of promises. We know the legacy media will not. Make his life miserable. Only make his life as miserable as he deserves for it to be, And as any politician, look, had Dave Reichert won, we would have gone from supporters of Dave Reichert back into we're going to make sure that he does his job the way he needs to do his job. But it was the reality is everything that we could do to try to hopefully beat Bob Ferguson obviously wasn't enough, but we had to try. Sergeant Pickles, I hope a large portion of SPD resigns on the spot when Fergie takes office and names him directly as the reason why. That's the other thing we'll have to talk about in the days to come. He says he's going to hire more police officers. Nobody will want to work for him. The staffing crisis at the State Patrol will get worse. No one wants to work for a guy who prosecuted 3 police officers for murder to further his political career. That's a horrifying thing. Baron of Gray Matter, so sorry. I've calmed down. Leaving our home will not solve this. The mass exodus of businesses will have consequences. By God, we'll have our home again. 39% of Washington voters voted for the right and Trump. Progressive policies are dead everywhere, but here the entitled and brain dead can flock here. Kathy Carr, $4.99 super chat. Brandi, did the state get to a trifecta of the Democrats? Well, they already have a trifecta. So they already way by big margins control the House and the Senate and the governor's office. The question is whether they're going to reach supermajorities. So we won't know until some of these final results come in. And I think it might be a good day tomorrow to have Senator John Braun on, the Senate minority leader, because he's really good at the numbers and the math of all of it and will help us make sense of where things are at. So reminder, the results as we speak right now, it's 1:20 p.m., are what they were last night. We won't have another drop of ballots until about 4 p.m. So that'll be our next sort of major wave. And then there'll be fewer and fewer in the days to come. But so there are still some races that need to be decided. Nicole, can you do me a favor as I'm playing this sanity? Well, I'll tell you. Hold on. Nicole, thank you. I have a little mission for you to go on for me.
Okay.
With that, can we get to our closing sanity check? She's like, what's this mission? What's this mission? So, a lot of, meltdowns and stuff on the news yesterday, but there's a guy named Scott Jennings. If you don't follow him on X, go follow him right now. He has turned into my very favorite political pundit. He's a senior CNN political pundit, and he's sort of their token Republican who's always on these panels and stuff. But he is such a good communicator. And last night, and it's great because he's sitting right next to Van Jones, Anderson Cooper, all these Democrats have to sit there, and they do sit there and very politely listen to him make a point to each and every one of them about why Donald Trump just won the presidency for a second time. Listen.
I'm interpreting the results tonight as the revenge of just the regular old working class American, the anonymous American who has been crushed, insulted, condescended to. They're not garbage. They're not Nazis. They're just regular people who get up and go to work every day and are trying to make a better life for their kids, and they feel like they have been told to just shut up when they have complained about the things that are hurting them in their own lives. I also feel like this election, as we sit here and pour over this tonight, is something of an indictment of the political information complex. I mean, we've been sitting around here for the last couple of weeks, and the story that was portrayed was not true. I mean, we were told Puerto Rico was going to change the election. Liz Cheney, Nikki Haley voters, women lying to their husbands. Before that, it was Tim Walz and the camo hats. Night after night after night, we were told all these things and gimmicks were going to somehow push Harris over the line. And we were just ignoring the fundamentals. Inflation, people feeling like that they were barely able to tread water at best. That was the fundamentals of the election. But I think for all of us who cover elections and talk about elections and do this on a day-to-day basis, we have to figure out how to understand, talk to, and listen to the half of the country that rose up tonight and said, we've had enough.
Amen. Do you have anything to add, Mr. President-elect? Make America great.
He might be tired, too.
He's super tired. The only saving grace the entire election night, please don't make me regret voting for you. Please don't make me regret it. Just zip the lips, do your job, save the economy, shut down the border, all of those things. A little less yep, a little more action, and I think we'll be good, okay? Great. Thank you, Mr. President.
Look like you're going to make out with them.
I'm not going to make out with him. I'm happily married, Nicole. Very offensive. All right, rather than I think our traditional out cue, first of all, thank you all so much for being with us through this wild election season journey. Some of you came out, did events with us, got involved for the first time. I can't thank you enough. We're going to continue this. We're going to, again, be Bob Ferguson's worst nightmare in holding not only the electorate accountable for pressuring the people they're putting back in office to actually do something, but holding the powerful accountable. It is going to continue to be the thing that we do on the show, including the 47th president of the United States. He will get no free passes from us, even though I'm very excited that the first time I voted for him, he was victorious. With that, Nicole, you can get the outro, but I was thinking of maybe singing a patriotic song to get us all in the mood. Which one? Are you going to play?
I'm proud to be an American.
Where at least I know I'm free, and I won't forget the men who died. I was expecting music in the background. Gave that right to me. Close the show, and I'll gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. Hit that note. Didn't, but God bless the U.S. Scene.